Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're focusing on something that, it often gets overshadowed by the flu or COVID-19, respiratory syncytial virus or RSV. And specifically, its really devastating impact on adults who are 60 and older.
It's a huge issue. For years, all the focus was on infants, but it's a major, major driver of serious disease in older adults.
Absolutely.
And if you've been looking for that definitive data on how we can prevent the worst outcomes, our mission today is for you. We're doing a deep dive into one massive source.
Just one.
Just one. It's a large, pragmatic clinical trial looking at the efficacy of the new RSV vaccine, the Prefusion F protein-based one, RSV-PPF.
Okay, so this is the moment I think a lot of the medical community has really been waiting for. We've seen data suggesting this vaccine prevented, general symptoms.
Right, the sniffles, a cough.
But the gold standard, the big randomized trial proving it stops hospitalization, that's been limited until now.
Yeah.
So let's not bury the lead here. This study found that for adults 60 and up, the RSV-PF vaccine delivered truly significant protection.
Significant is almost an understatement. I mean, the level of effectiveness they found against the most severe outcomes it's transformative. It could really redefine seasonal preventative care.
Okay, before we get to the headline numbers, and trust me, they're fantastic, we have to just take a second to appreciate the study itself. The sheer quality of it.
Yes.
This wasn't some small, super controlled lab setting. It was a pragmatic, open-label trial.
And that word pragmatic is so crucial here. It means they designed it to mimic real-world conditions.
So they weren't trying to control every little variable.
Not at all. They were trying to see what happens when you just roll the vaccine out into the general population. It's so much more useful that way.
Right. So they randomized participants, a simple 1-to-1 ratio. One group got a single dose of the RSV-PF vaccine, and the other group got no vaccine.
Simple as that.
And they specifically enrolled adults 60 years of age or older, the exact population we're worried about. And this all happened over one full respiratory season, the winter of 2024 to 2025.
And the scale of it, I mean, when we talk about statistical power, this study delivered. They randomized a total of 131,379 participants.
Wow.
And for the final analysis, what they call the intention to treat analysis, they included 131,276 people.
That is just a colossal number. It has to give you incredible confidence in the findings. But how did they track outcomes for that many people? I mean, it can't have been through like patient diaries or surveys.
And that's where the pragmatic design is just brilliant. They weren't relying on people to self-report. They collected the data, both baseline and the outcomes, using established national registries.
Oh, so they're looking at official public health records.
Exactly. It's robust, it's verifiable, and it's fantastic at capturing the severe events reliably.
Yeah.
It means the data has immediate, strong, real-world application.
Which is perfect because the whole point is to see if it keeps people out of the hospital. So let's talk about the goals they set, the endpoints.
Right. To be considered a success, they set a pretty firm line in the sand. They needed to see a minimum vaccine effectiveness, or VE, of greater than 20%.
Okay, so better than 20%.
For both the primary endpoint and the other RSV-related secondary ones. They wanted to be sure this thing was definitively helpful, not just marginal.
And the primary endpoint they were measuring was, well, it was the big one. Hospitalization for RSV-related respiratory tract disease.
The most critical question.
Okay, let's unpack this. This is where it gets really good.
It really is. I mean, when you look at the results for that primary endpoint, the difference is it's stark.
So in the vaccinated group, that was 65,642 people, they recorded only 3 hospitalizations.
Right, 3.
Just 3. Now, in the control group, which was almost the exact same size, 65,634 people, they saw 18 hospitalizations.
18. That's a 6-fold difference.
That ratio is incredible. So when you translate that into incidence rates, it's something like 0.11 events in the vaccinated group versus 0.66 events per 1,000 participant years.
And that's what gets you to the core result. The overall vaccine effectiveness against RSV hospitalization was an amazing 83.3%.
83.3%.
An astonishingly good result for a vaccine like this, especially in an older, more vulnerable population.
Yeah.
It blew past their 20% success goal. It was clearly statistically significant.
So why is that number, 83.3%, so much more transformative than what we see for, say, the flu shot? We sometimes accept 50% or 60% effectiveness for flu in older adults. Why does this change the game?
Well, it's because RSV just hits older adults so much harder.
Yeah.
It leads to these severe, often really prolonged hospitalizations. So if you can cut that risk by over 80%, You're having a massive impact on quality of life, on healthcare system strain.
It really validates the science behind the vaccine itself. Which brings me to the technical side. It's based on the RSV Prefusion F protein. Can you give us the quick summary of why that pre-F part is so important?
I can. So the F protein is what the virus uses to fuse with and enter our cells. It has two main shapes. Perfusion, that's before it attaches, and postfusion, which is after.
Okay.
The perfusion shape is the one that our immune system really needs to see to mount a powerful response. But the problem is it's highly unstable.
Ah.
So the breakthrough with this vaccine is that it successfully stabilizes that crucial perfusion shape. It presents the immune system with that specific target, and the antibody response is just vastly more potent than what you'd get from older designs.
So they're training the immune system on the most important part of the virus. That makes perfect sense. Okay, let's move to the second result. And this one might be the most important clinical finding of the entire study.
I would agree.
Hospitalizations specifically for RSV-related lower respiratory tract disease.
This is vital because lower respiratory tract disease, we're talking pneumonia, severe bronchiolitis, that is what truly threatens life in older adults. It's what puts them in the ICU.
And when they looked at just this more severe subset of illness, the results were even more dramatic. They found only one single event in the entire vaccinated group.
One event, and compare that to 12 events in the control group.
1 versus 12.
The math on that is pretty straightforward. The vaccine effectiveness against that specific severe outcome was an extraordinary 91.7%.
91.7% effective against the worst case scenario. I mean, from a clinical perspective, what does that number even mean for an individual person over 60?
It means we're not just preventing a few days in the hospital, we're preventing that whole cascade of complications. A severe lower respiratory infection, it doesn't just hit the lungs.
Right.
It leads to secondary bacterial infections. It makes chronic conditions like heart failure worse. It can cause cognitive decline after a hospital stay. And a major, sometimes permanent, loss of independence. Preventing almost 92% of those events is it's revolutionary for extending a healthy lifespan.
That really does sound like a public health victory, but I have to ask, this was over one winter, right, in one area. Did the source material talk about durability? Like, how long does this last?
That's a really important caveat. And no, since this was a pragmatic trial over a single season, the source doesn't give us long-term durability data. We can't say if this protection lasts 5 years or just 1,
Okay.
but it strongly suggests protection through the height of that specific season. So future research absolutely needs to track this over time and see how it holds up against new variants, which RSV is known for.
A necessary note of caution, for sure. Okay, now let's pivot to the final secondary endpoint. And this one is fascinating because they cast a much wider net.
A much wider net.
Hospitalization for respiratory tract disease from any cause. So this is where the vaccine is only targeting RSV, but they're measuring everything.
Exactly. You're measuring the vaccine's ability to reduce the total seasonal burden of hospitalizations, regardless of whether it was RSV, the flu, a common cold, you name it.
And as you'd expect, the effectiveness number dropped quite a bit. It couldn't stop the flu. They found 284 events in the vaccine group versus 335 in the control group, and that worked out to an effectiveness of 15.2%.
And while 15.2% sounds much lower than, 83% or 91%, it is a deeply interesting finding. You shouldn't overlook it. It was statistically significant for being greater than 0.
Okay, so what does that tell us? How could that be?
Well, the most likely explanation is that RSV is just a much more common and frequently undiagnosed cause of severe respiratory distress than we thought.
So RSV is the initial trigger for an event that gets called something else.
Precisely. Maybe it gets complicated by a bacterial infection later, or it's just categorized as nonspecific viral pneumonia.
Ugh.
By stopping that first domino, the RSV infection, you stop the whole cascade. That 15.2% suggests RSV is a much larger piece of the seasonal burden pie than we realized.
That really puts a spotlight on the silent threat of RSV. Before we wrap up the data, let's just quickly touch on safety. For a trial this big, safety is everything.
Non-negotiable. And the safety data here was incredibly reassuring. The incidence of serious adverse events was statistically the same in both groups.
So no red flags.
No evidence at all that this highly effective vaccine introduced any new or increased serious risks for older adults.
Okay, let's tie this all together. We have definitive real-world evidence from over 130,000 people. We found 83.3% effectiveness against general RSV hospitalization and a landmark 91.7% effectiveness against the deadliest outcome, lower respiratory tract disease. This truly changes the game for older adults. Thank you for walking us through these numbers.
My pleasure. This is a powerful set of findings. So for the final provocative thought for you to take away from all this, the study's biggest win was clearly that 91.7% number. It proves the target protection works brilliantly.
Right.
However, that 15.2% effectiveness against hospitalization from any cause raises a really profound question about the vaccine's broader value.
Yeah, that 15.2% impact on the total burden is fascinating.
So here's the thought. Is it possible that widely vaccinating older adults against RSV could have an outsized beneficial impact on overall hospital capacity during the winter, beyond just the RSV cases, by preventing the start of these complex, hard-to-diagnose respiratory spirals? If stopping just one virus can reduce total respiratory admissions by, say, a tenth to a fifth, then what are the public health implications for preventing any respiratory hospitalization in this vulnerable group? It suggests we might need to think of this vaccine not just as an RSV shield, but as a significant tool for managing the entire winter disease burden.